I keep knocking and knocking and knocking. Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums, and today I'm going to be doing my second review of the day. And yeah, this is going to be a pretty special album review. When I review an album, chances are, at this day and age, it is an album that is released this year, and I would like to talk about it because it's released from this year. That, or usually there would be a theme going on for my album reviews, like my first few album review series. I review all Coldplay albums, or all Gorillaz albums, or all Kendrick Lamar albums. And also there is a review series where I basically review albums from Hong Kong, music from Hong Kong, because I'm from Hong Kong and I have to talk about it. And now I shall start another series of album reviews, and that is albums I should have reviewed, albums that I really, really love, that I really want to talk about, but never actually had the time to talk about because I didn't have the time. But now I do, so now I will do these album reviews. The first one on the list would be Daughters Self-Titled. It is an album released in the year 2010, and yeah, I was like 7 years old when this album is released, so there is no way am I going to be, was I going to be there to listen to this album. But after finding out about You Won't Get What You Want, which is still one of my favorite albums of the 2010s, oh my god, this album is harrowing, it's crushing, it is absolutely world-shattering, and yeah, Fantano gave it a 10. I think it's a 10 out of 10 as well. I freaking love that album. I also found out about their self-titled album, and man, Daughter's self-titled is so fucking good. Daughter's self-titled album is actually their third album after Hell Songs and Canada Songs, and both Hell Songs and Canada Songs are albums that are about 15-16 minutes, not too many tracks, and each track is just really short, and they're all feature these thrashy, wild, deranged guitars, screams, screeches, and it's very skeletal. That's why people usually describe Daughters as a mathcore band or a metalcore band. But on self-titled, they sort of change up their style a little bit. First of all, self-titled is 27 minutes long, which is easily their longest project at that point. Also, this album is way denser, way more thunderous, and way more violent. The music on this album is so fucking violent. It's so noisy. It's so crushing and grinding and deranged and insane and enraging. It just amps me up every time I listen to it. I just love this kind of music. This kind of music, man. It's just like being pushed to the edge of the world, and it is just insane. But anyways, the album has The Virgin as the album opener, which is a very well titled song indeed. Also, I'd like to point out that Daughters name their songs really well. Like, they have a lot of very memorable song titles, like Daughters Spelled Wrong, The Fuck Whisperer, performed or I think recorded in a pyramid, and a lot of other like very funny, like ridiculous and deranged song titles as well. Daughter's music is basically, for me, the epitome, the peak of musical insanity. If you want to listen to music and go absolutely insane, Daughters would be your answer. I also want to say that Daughters reminds me a lot of Lightning Bolt at times, and Lightning Bolt is an older band than Daughters, but I don't think, while Lightning Bolt is incredibly noisy and it's also very violent music, but Daughters just takes that one step further and make it almost cartoonish, because a lot of the grooves on this album is actually very danceable and very rhythmic, which actually makes it even more deranged and insane, and I absolutely love it. Again, The Virgin as the album opener, with the really wailing guitars, bam, 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 and the slide guitars, that's just going absolutely ham, like a group of snakes and squids just being slaughtered, and it's just freaking out, having epileptic seizures. and it's just going back and forth like a squelching alarm clock. And we have lyrics talking about how this guy Paul is wearing a hat of fire, and it's basically kind of metaphorical. It's basically dealing with feelings of isolation, and also the Virgin, which refers to that character and the song as well, which is a very interesting album opener, even though musically it takes some time getting used to. But boy, does this song slap. But do you know what slaps even harder? The First Supper. Holy shit, this song. The First Supper is still one of my favorite songs of the 2010s. When I talked about my favorite songs of the 2010s in my decade end list, I named Daughter's a Guest House, but is also tied with The First Supper, because The First Supper is pure boiling blood. It's music like this makes me want to tear my shirt off, run in the streets naked 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, and then punch through a wall of glass with my bare fist and scream on top of my lungs. It's just pure insanity. It is honestly a work of art. It starts out with these very fiery and anxiety-inducing guitars and bass, and then these scorching, screeching guitar tones that's just like ripping your meat apart. And then it transitions into this detuned guitar solo, which is so deafening and deranged. And as if that is not insane enough, we transition into this wall of crushing guitars. I've never heard guitars this compressed. It is like a solid wall of concrete slammed into your face. It's like being slammed by 1,000 falling anvils. Just gang 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 gang, bam 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 bam. And then the vocal performances performed by Alexis SF Marshall, the frontman of the band. He's like an angry auctioneer, just it's just like I've never heard anything like this before. It's otherworldly. It is absolutely brain melting, and I just fucking love it so much. And I did a little research on the lyrics, and apparently it sort of refers to this film called Ravenous. So I haven't watched that, so I gotta watch that because of the song. But holy shit, The First Supper, just it's the wildest thing I've ever heard. And then we have the hit, where we have more melodic guitar riffs and bass riffs, and these glitching guitar tones. It's like a robot being strangled to death. And then in the middle of the track, it just quiets down out of nowhere, and then it fucking explodes. And we have very strange and abstract lyrics sort of talking about, again, this album is noise rock, it's mathcore, metalcore, dare I say, but also a bit of southern rock, and they mix a lot of like Southern American folklore and just southern tales and stories and flavors. And we have a very southern flavored story in this track about a white guy trying to save a town from their very unchristian behavior by performing lobotomy, I guess. And it's just about how insane and deluded that situation is. And it's just friggin' crazy. And equally as melodic is the next track, The Theater Goer, with its very sharp, shrill, shimmery guitars. And Alexis Marshall on this track sounds like Gibbons. Like he moans and he screams and he goes oh 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 at the end of the track, which is, again, it just sounds like I'm in a zoo and there are like 50 gibbons just yelling and going absolutely insane. And there's also this vibrato in his vocals, which adds so much intensity. And then we have Our Queens, One is Many, Many Are One, which has a pretty mediocre first half in my opinion. It doesn't really build up anywhere. We have this dun 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 brrr, bam 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 brrr, this constant guitar loop thing. And then we have the second half, and oh my god, it's just so danceable. It's It's very groovy. We get these very shaky cymbals and claps and yelps. It's like I just wandered into this club or this pub in the middle of nowhere, and everyone in there are just enchanted by Satan or something. And then we have the dead singer, and the insanity does not stop here. The dead singer is arguably one of the more slow-paced tracks on the album, but wow! It starts off with these desolate, sunburnt guitars, and it has this very odd rhythm. I love the drumming on this album, by the way. Boom, ba, ba, boom, ba, ba. And then we have these very, just, like, shouty vocals. Just, hey there, little girl! And then we have the chorus, which is the dead sing along, dead singing along, dead sing along, dead singing along. Ba-dow, bum bum, ba-dow, bum bum. The drums are so crushed and manipulated. It sounds like it's clipping and snipping, like a gun firing or something. It's absolutely insane, and the lyrics are actually really dark, you know, where essentially it's like a little girl visiting someone from the dead, like a grave or something, and then the dead just sings along. It's very scary. And then we have Sweet Georgia Brown, and this track is so skippity and raggedy. We get these very southern flavored guitars, and no, it's not a cover song. The guitars are just so raggedy and rigid, and it's just constantly skipping. And then we have these very tight drums, and once again the second half of the song features these very danceable grooves where we have these crowd chants and hollers, you know, these hollers, these yelps. Hey, hey. It's just wild. And then the album ends off with the Unattractive Portable Head, which is kind of a mid-paced ending. The first half, again, in my opinion, a little bit mediocre. We have these very cartoonish vocal performances, and then it transitions into the second half, which is also kind of amazing. We get these very horror-flavored keyboards and these hand claps, and we hear nothing but these keyboards and these hand claps, which is very refreshing, given that we just went through 25 minutes of hellish noise. And then, of course, it gets more and more dramatic, more and more unhinged, and it explodes in a noisy, climactic, deranged finish. So, yeah, Daughter, self-titled. I love this album. Originally, I planned to give this album an 8, but I actually like every single track here. Like, I can't find a single song on the album where I don't like. Every single song has something going for it that I really enjoy. Even though I would love it if this album has more versatility, because certain grooves and certain riffs are being repeated in several tracks, but still, if you're looking to go absolutely insane, to witness sonic destruction, Daughter's self-titled would be the album to go. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. My favorite track here is The First Supper, and my least favorite is the album ending, I guess, if I had to pick one. I'm giving Daughter's self-titled album a 9 out of 10. So, have you listened to the Daughters album? From 1 to 10, how much you rate it? Like it, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. Originally, I'm going to review Modest Mouse tomorrow, but maybe I won't. Maybe instead I will review Half Waif. Or Twin Shadow, maybe?